Imagine a society that promises zero conflict, zero jealousy, and zero theft.
Right, which sounds impossible.
Totally. A
Mhm.
place where strangers live together with like the intimacy of a perfect family,
Yeah.
sharing everything, laughing every day, completely insulated from all the anxieties of the modern
It
world.
sounds pretty ideal.
It does.
Yeah.
But now imagine that the only rule to get through the front door of this place is that you have to already be completely flawless.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, quite the catch, right? Welcome to another deep dive. Today we're looking at a modern manifesto that claims to have actually built this impossible paradise, but, with a twist that will absolutely make your head spin.
I mean, it is a fascinating read.
It really is. Today we're examining a very short, fiercely ambitious essay. It's titled The Truth About Utopia. It was written by an author named Xu Feng in June of 2024 and translated by Kinyu.
And our mission today is to really dissect the specific towering claims made in this text, right?
It's exactly. Specifically about a currently operating utopian community called Lifechanyuan. And just to be absolutely clear right at the top for everyone listening, we are exploring the author's stated worldview completely impartially.
Yeah, we aren't here to endorse this community or attack it.
Right. We're just here to look at the sort of structural engineering of the essay itself, to understand how the author constructs this vision of a perfect society.
Because the way this manifesto is built is entirely different from what you might expect. I mean, usually when someone proposes a utopian society, they start with material things.
Oh, for sure. Wealth redistribution, agricultural reform.
Exactly, or like new legal frameworks. They start with the physical mechanics of how people will live and work together. But Xu he does not do that at all.
No, he really doesn't.
He bypasses economics and politics entirely.
Okay, let's unpack this, because this is where the text throws its first massive curveball. The author doesn't start with social science. He starts with theoretical physics.
Yeah, specifically quantum mechanics.
Right. The text literally opens with the direct assertion that quantum mechanics proves the world before our eyes is purely the result of our observation.
What's fascinating here is how the author takes a very specific interpretation of quantum physics, the observer effect, where the act of measurement influences a subatomic particle. And he scales it up from the microscopic level to the level of macrosociology.
Which is a huge leap.
It's massive. The text explicitly argues that reality is a direct one-to-one manifestation of our consciousness. Shuifeng writes that whatever our consciousness is like, reality presents matching results.
So it's a literal causal relationship in his framework.
Exactly.
So we need to really think about the mechanics of that claim for a second. He's not just saying, oh, if you have a positive attitude, you'll have a better day.
No, it's way beyond that.
He is arguing that consciousness physically generates the reality around it. Like, think of your mind as a movie projector and reality as the screen.
That's a great way to put it.
Whatever film you load into your consciousness is exactly what plays out in the real world. It's almost like treating human consciousness as a software compiler.
Right, so if you write buggy code in your mind.
Yeah, like jealousy, greed, anger. The reality that compiles and executes around you is going to be full of conflict and suffering.
That is a highly accurate way to frame his argument. And it's the absolute bedrock of this Lifechanyuan organization, which the text notes Shuifeng created over 20 years ago.
Over 20 years.
Yeah. He claims to have deeply experienced and felt the truth of this quantum theory through the creation of this community. By making consciousness the foundational variable of reality, he completely shifts the burden of utopian design.
How so?
Well, you no longer need to design perfect laws to govern flawed people. You just need to perfect the consciousness of the people, and the physical reality of a perfect society will automatically follow.
Okay, but hold on. I have to push back on that leap. Because it's one thing to philosophize that consciousness shapes reality. But how does the author bridge the gap between that abstract concept and the physical, logistical reality of a commune?
It is a fair question.
Like, if I stub my toe, my consciousness didn't manifest the coffee table. The coffee table is just there.
Right.
So how does he jump from a highly debated interpretation of subatomic particle behavior to claiming he has successfully built a functioning physical society of human beings?
Well, he bridges that gap by treating the community itself as the proof of the physics. The text sets up a paradigm where societal perfection is entirely dependent on the collective mindset of its members.
Okay.
The logic is that if reality is merely a mirror, a flawed society is simply a reflection of flawed, unsynchronized consciousness. So, to build his perfect society, he argues you have to align the consciousness of a specific group of people.
Right, so if everyone's software is running the exact same conflict-free code.
The reality they collectively generate must, according to his premise, be conflict-free.
Which brings us to the actual physical blueprint of this society. Because the text doesn't just stay in the realm of theory forever.
No, it gets very specific about the timeline.
Yeah, Feng writes that, based entirely on this quantum consciousness theory, they birthed a new utopian production and living model in April 2009.
And the terminology he uses to describe this model is nothing short of majestic.
Oh, for sure. He calls it the kingdom of the greatest creator. He refers to it as Feng-style communism, and he literally calls it a heaven on earth.
Those labels are doing a lot of heavy lifting. I mean, Zhufeng-style communism attempts to evoke a sense of absolute equality and shared resources.
Right.
While Kingdom of the Greatest Creator imbues the project with an undeniable layer of spiritual or divine authority.
And the promises attached to those labels are absolute. Like, the text claims this model completely eradicates every individual's worries, pains, misfortunes, and all social maladies.
Every single.
It paints a picture of strangers living together like family, without any conflict, zero jealousy, zero theft. It even says there is no quarreling whatsoever.
Just laughing and sharing everything happily every single day.
Right. Now, when I read that, my immediate reaction was to look for the operating manual.
Naturally.
Because if you claim to have built an engine that runs on water, you have to show me the pistons. Does the text ever explain the day-to-day mechanics of how Zhufeng-style communism actually operates to achieve this?
Not really, no.
Like, who takes out the trash? How are resources allocated if someone wants more than someone else? How do they mediate the inevitable frictions of human cohabitation?
The author deliberately omits all of that.
Really? All of it?
Yeah, there's no organizational chart, no mention of chore wheels, and no legal framework provided in the text. Instead, he introduces the specific name for this physical model.
Which is the second home, right?
Exactly, the second home. And he insists that its validity isn't theoretical. He leans entirely on the claim that this model has been proven by 16 years of actual practice since its inception in 2009.
That is a staggering rhetorical maneuver.
It really is.
It's like selling a car with the hood welded completely shut. You ask the salesman how the engine works, and he says, you don't need to see the engine because the car has been driving perfectly for 16 years.
That's the exact logic at play here. The author relies on the claimed longevity of the experiment as the sole proof of its mechanical soundness.
Wow.
By stating that the utopian model has never disappeared since 2009, he bypasses the need to defend the daily logistics. He's telling the reader that the debate over how it works is irrelevant because the fact that it works is already settled history.
But if we're just taking his word for the results, we have to look closely at how he frames that history.
Definitely.
Because a utopian claim is easy to make in a vacuum. It's easy to be perfect when you're completely isolated. But any real community has to survive the friction of the outside world.
And this leads to a highly intriguing, almost mysterious detail in the text.
Yes, Zhufeng claims the second home has survived more than 10 heavy blows, yet it remains full of infinite vitality and life force.
The inclusion of that specific phrase is a crucial piece of the narrative architecture.
Think about what that actually means for a second. More than 10 heavy blows. What were they? The text leaves us completely hanging.
It really does.
Were there financial audits, legal battles with local governments, internal schisms where half the commune left, natural disasters? We get absolutely no details.
None, just the dramatic assertion that they were hit and they survived.
So what is the strategic value of being so vague about something so major?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture of how ideological movements build legitimacy, leaving those blows unnamed is a profoundly effective strategy.
How so?
It creates a powerful narrative of persecution without opening the community up to factual scrutiny. I mean, if he named a specific legal battle, a skeptic could just go look up the court records.
Oh, that makes sense. They could poke holes in the story.
Exactly. But keeping the blows abstract, he establishes the second home not as a fragile experiment that requires perfect conditions, but as a battle-tested fortress.
Right.
It proves to the reader that the community possesses resilience against an antagonistic outside world without having to actually litigate the details of that antagonism.
It adds this incredible dramatic tension. It frames the community's existence as a triumph over adversity. And he escalates that claim of resilience by pointing out that this isn't just one isolated bunker somewhere.
No, the text states that this model is currently running successfully on an international scale,
Yeah, Yufeng specifically lists branches operating in Thailand, Canada, and South Korea.
which serves as a fascinating substitute for scientific reproducibility.
Oh, like repeating an experiment.
Right. In science, an experiment is only valid if another lab can replicate the exact same results. By establishing communes across vastly different international
With
landscapes
different economies, different cultural norms.
and different legal systems. The author is claiming universal applicability. If Shufeng-style communism only existed in one specific location, critics could write it off as a fluke.
Like just a unique group of people who happen to get along.
Exactly. But by claiming success in Thailand, Canada, and South Korea, he's saying his quantum foundation works regardless of geography.
It's like saying gravity doesn't just work in your backyard, it works everywhere.
Yes. He's attempting to elevate his utopian model from a local lifestyle choice to a fundamental law of human sociology.
And that international footprint is meant to be the final piece of evidence that the reader needs. I mean, the text has laid out the physics, named the societal model, claimed 16 years of unbroken success, established its resilience against outside attacks, and proven its global scalability.
It builds a very methodical case.
Right. Okay, so if a reader accepts all of this, if they read this essay and say, wow, an internationally resilient, conflict-free heaven on earth actually exists, the very next logical question is, how do I get in?
Of course.
How does a normal person join the second home? Which brings us to the final section of the text, and I have to say, this is the most rhetorically brilliant, airtight part of the entire deep dive.
It really is a masterclass in psychological defense mechanisms. The way the author pivots from inviting the reader in to essentially locking them out is remarkably sophisticated.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The text builds up to what looks like a big reveal. Ruifeng writes that this true utopia includes the following connotations, and explicitly states that to live this life, every member must meet the following conditions.
And when you read that sentence, you are naturally expecting a bulleted list.
Exactly. You expect to read, give up your bank accounts, commit to an awesome meditation a day, agree to never raise your voice, whatever the ground rules are, but there is no list.
None.
The text immediately jumps to asking, can you do it? Without actually stating a single condition.
It completely skips the criteria and goes straight to challenging the reader's capacity to meet that non-existent criteria.
It's the ultimate catch-22. It reminded me immediately of a software end-user license agreement. You know when you install an app and you get that massive wall of text and you just click I agree at the bottom?
Oh, absolutely. Everyone does it.
The text is essentially putting a giant I agree button in front of the reader, but the screen is blank. Zhu Feng writes, if you can, you'll ascend to heaven in one step. If you can't, you can only continue your current life. But you don't even know what you're agreeing to.
Right.
How does an author justify a move like that?
He justifies it by shifting the paradigm of what it means to be qualified for utopia. The author anticipates that the reader will be skeptical or confused by the lack of concrete steps.
Naturally.
So he deploys a three-pronged defense that completely insulates his claims from any possible outside criticism. He basically commands the reader not to slander the utopia just because they, individually, cannot achieve it.
Let's break down those three prongs, because it acts like an impenetrable ideological moat around the entire concept of the second home.
Okay, so the first defense targets evidence. The text states that if you haven't heard of or seen this paradise, it's because your fortune isn't enough.
Wow.
It frames ignorance not as a failure of the community's marketing or visibility, but as a lack of personal cosmic luck or alignment.
That is wild. And the second defense?
The second defense targets comprehension. If you read about this community but you don't understand it or you don't believe it's possible, the text says it's because your spiritual perception hasn't opened.
So it categorizes skepticism as a spiritual deficit.
Exactly.
And the third defense, which is the real kicker.
The third defense targets participation. If you cannot actually live in this paradise on Earth, the text concludes it's because you are still a common person.
That sequence is incredible. It's like the emperor's new clothes, but weaponized as sociology.
That's a great comparison.
Notice how it shifts the entire burden of proof completely away from the utopian model itself and drops it squarely onto the spiritual inadequacies of the reader. Like if I say, show me the data that proves nobody ever argues in the second home, The text doesn't have to provide data.
No, it just says your spiritual perception is closed.
Right. And if I say, I can't figure out how to join, the text says, that's because you are a common person.
Which makes the entire text entirely unfalsifiable. Any failure to verify the existence of this perfect utopia, or any failure to successfully integrate into it, is instantly categorized as a personal spiritual failure of the observer.
You can never point to a flaw in the system.
Exactly, because the system defines any perception of a flaw as proof that you are flawed.
And it loops perfectly back to the very first paragraph.
Yeah.
Remember the quantum mechanics argument?
That reality is a manifestation of consciousness.
Exactly. If you, the reader, look at this manifesto and you only see contradictions, or if you look at the world and only see conflict, is because your own consciousness is projecting that reality.
Your internal software is compiling a broken world.
Yes. The text argues that the perfect society is sitting right there, operating globally for 16 years, but you are quite literally not spiritually equipped to perceive it.
It creates a perfectly sealed, logical loop. It demands absolute, unquestioning belief as the price of admission, but refuses to tell you what you are actually submitting to.
It's brilliant in a way.
And that psychological threshold is vastly more effective at keeping out dissenters than any physical wall or strict set of rules. Because if there were a list of conditions, you could complete them.
Right, you could check off all the boxes and say, I did the chores, I donated the money, now let me in.
But by making the condition an intangible state of being, a state of not being a common person, the leadership retains absolute authority over who belongs and who doesn't. You can never prove you've met the criteria, because the criteria is whatever they decide it is in that moment.
So what does this all mean? When we step back and look at the entirety of Yufeng's The Truth About Utopia, what we are looking at is a staggeringly ambitious piece of rhetorical architecture.
It really is.
He takes the language of quantum mechanics to argue that our thoughts physically generate reality. He uses that as the foundation for Yufeng-style communism, claiming to have built a conflict-free second home that has thrived internationally since 2009, surviving unnamed heavy blows.
Right.
But instead of offering us the blueprints to that society, he fortifies the entire structure behind a heavily guarded psychological wall. It's a text that offers an incredibly bold vision of a world without pain, but immediately locks the gates, challenging you to prove you aren't just a common person before you can even see inside.
Which leaves us with a really provocative thought to end on. It raises an important question, one that echoes through centuries of utopian literature.
Oh, what's that?
Whenever humanity is presented with a vision of a flawless, frictionless society, that society inevitably requires a perfect, highly elevated type of human being to inhabit it. It forces us to ask, should a true utopia be designed to accommodate the messy, flawed, arguing realities of actual people building systems that manage our imperfections? Or is the very definition of paradise a place where only those who have already opened their spiritual perception are allowed to exist?
Like, does the architecture have to adapt to the wonky steel? Or do you have to magically source perfect steel before you can even begin to build?
Exactly.
It's a brilliant question, and it completely changes how we evaluate any group claiming to have built heaven on earth. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it gave you something new to build in your own thoughts today. Until next time.